Hi there, welcome back to my channel. Today is day 20 of our cold porcelain advent calendar. So we are making Wise King Balthazar. We're only going to need the following cutout pieces from the template. So the beard, the cloak, and the face. I hope you like this project. Let's get started. To begin, we're going to start by getting 1/4 of a teaspoon for the face, 1/8 of a teaspoon for the hands, and 1/2 a teaspoon in black clay for the beard. Then we're going to start working on the head. Remember, you can find my cold porcelain clay recipe here on the channel, and I'm also linking it on the card above. So now I'm just kneading that thoroughly, shaping it into a ball, and then making it flat, and then start adding the features so we can highlight the cheeks and the eye sockets, and then placing the face cutout on top of our piece of clay and marking the nose, eyes, and lips just to get an idea for the distribution of the face features. Once we're done, it's going to look like this, very lightly visible. And now we're just going to go over those lines and make them more clear. So I'm going to start working on the lips and mouth. And just like with the other Wise Kings, we're mostly highlighting the lip line or the smile line and the lower lip, since the upper lip won't be very visible. Just like that. Most of the face will be covered by the beard, so we're not going to put too much work into this, but we are still paying a lot of attention to it. Now I'm just going to get a toothpick and add a little bit of glue right above the mouth so we can add a small piece of clay for the nose. Remember, just to make this more of an oval shape than a circle, placing it above the mouth and then marking the nostrils one more time. And then a little bit smoothing down at the top just so everything blends nicely together. Now, before we forget, I'm going to add a little bit of eyeshadow just to give him a little bit of blush or color. And adding very lightly over the lips as well, just to make those lines stand out. Now we're going to paint the eyes, and for that I'm getting white acrylic paint. Trying to keep them both the same size and following the lines we already made from the cutout. Just like that. I'm using a liner brush for this. Now I'm just painting the other eye. And again, just trying to keep them both roughly the same size so they look even. Now we're going to let this dry. And while it dries, we're going to start working on the hands. Now, just like we done with the other hands, I'm just stretching this into a cylinder, cutting it in half, and then using 1/2 to make both hands. Forming it into a ball, making a cylinder one more time, then making it thinner in the center, so 2 sort of circles or edges will form. And then making those circles flat to get the hands. Highlighting the wrists. And then making a triangle cut to highlight the thumb. Rounding out the tips of the fingers so they don't look jagged. And then making 3 more cuts to get the other 4 fingers. And then rounding them as well. Just like that. Now I'm just going to go in with my rubber brush and highlight the shape for the palm. And we're going to do the same thing on the other hand. Once we have both of them ready, we're just going to split them apart at the middle and let them dry. Now we're going to go ahead and start working on the beard just to save some time. And again, for that one, I'm using 1/2 teaspoon of black clay. This is called porcelain clay. Shape it into a ball and then stretch it out and make it flat and large enough just to fit in that cutout. And once you cut it, it's going to look like this. And now I'm just going to go over all the beard and give it some texture. Just following the natural lines of the hair and adding some hair strands. Just like this. Making sure it has texture all around. And now I'm just going to add some sort of curls. Again, using my rubber brush. And I'm just making spirals all over this piece of clay. Just like this. Now I'm just going over those lines one more time. And it's going to look like this. It's very similar to what we did on the sheep. Now on this bottom part, just so it matches the curls better, I'm making the bottom of the beard round. And then to make these texture and curls stand out, I'm going in with some powder toners. You can also use eyeshadows or chalk pastels. And I'm using blue since it reflects better on black clay when we're trying to give it sort of a hair texture. Now that the white part paint of our eyes is done and dry, I'm going in with some brown paint and a pinhead just to make the circle for the iris. Just like that. And now in the center, I'm going to go in with a smaller round tool. In this case, I'm using this ball tool. And then just adding a black dot inside of that iris to make the pupil. Once we have both, we're going to go all around the edge of the eye, so making the outline. And remember, just to make sure the black paint is watered down so the brush can glide easier. Or more easily. And now we have the eyes, so I just do the same thing on the other eye. And now we can go ahead and attach the beard, so I'm just using a little bit of glue on the chin for that. Now I'm placing the beard at the bottom and wrapping it around the sides of the face. Just like that. Now on the sides here, I'm just adding a little bit of glue in order to attach the ears. I just made 2 small balls of clay, roughly the same size. Now I'm attaching one to the right side, the other one to the left side, and then just making a small indent with my rubber brush to give it that ear shape. And now we're going to work on the mustache. For the mustache, I'm measuring 1/4 teaspoon of black clay. I'm kneading that thoroughly, stretching it out, cutting it in half, then half again. And one of those fourths, I'm cutting it in half one more time. I just made that into a ball, stretching it out, making it pointy on both ends. Then making a line down the middle and attaching it to the top of the mouth. And now I'm just adjusting it to make sure it looks good. And it's going to look like this. Now I'm just going to add a small bit of shine to the eyes, again using acrylic paint, and in this case a toothpick. Just added that dot to each eye, and that's it. Now I'm going to add a toothpick on the back just so it's easier to manage it right now, to let it dry and to secure it to the body. Now to continue, we're going to get a half a teaspoon for the body or robe, 1/8 of a teaspoon for each sleeve or arm, and 1 teaspoon for this round piece for the cloak. If you notice, the robe is a darker shade of green and the other pieces are a lighter shade of green. Now I just shaped that into a ball, kneading it thoroughly, and then making a sort of drop shape that's flat at the bottom so it resembles a cone. Now in this part here, you can use a toothpick, a crochet needle, or the tool I'm going to use, which is a bone tool, just to go in and add the folds on the fabric. Just like that. Now making sure it's very flat at the bottom. And now I'm making a hole at the bottom again, just to make it wider. Just like that. And going over the folds one more time. Just like that. Now we're going to add a toothpick at the top and all the way through our robe so it can hold the head securely once we attach everything together. Making sure it doesn't go all the way to the bottom to account for the cold porcelain shrinkage. And to make sure it can stay flat at the bottom and the toothpick won't affect its balance. Now I just made a diagonal cut at the top and that's done. Now I'm just going to stretch that 1 teaspoon of lighter green clay, enough to fit that cloak cutout you saw before. And I'm just making it thinner around the edges and then attaching it to the robe, wrapping it around to make it look sort of like it's just draping over, like that, and then cutting a bit of the excess at the back so it's not too long. Just like that. And placing it one more time to make sure everything is nice and flat. Just like that. Now we're going to add the arms, and for that I'm going to start working on them by kneading them thoroughly, making a sort of drop shape, trying not to keep it too pointy at the top and instead making it more round. Then I'm making a hole at the widest point to stretch everything out and make the sleeves wider, closer to the hands. And then while it's still on that start tool, I'm going in and adding some lines and folds around the bottom part of the sleeve and around the elbow area. Just like this. Now I'm going to glue this to one side, just using a little bit of glue and then folding or bending that arm. Now I'm going to attach one hand in here, again with a little bit of glue, and it's going to look like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other arm. Once we have both of them, it's going to look like this, and we can go over all the edges of the cloak, just adding some gold touches. I'm using metallic acrylic golden paint and a liner brush for this. Just like this. And just painting all around the cloak. Once we painted everything in gold all around, it's going to look like this. And now I can attach the head to the body. I'm just adding some glue right now to the toothpick that's sticking out of the body, and then securing the head into place. Now I just realized I missed the eyebrows when I was working on the face, but that's okay, we can do them right now. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue and then getting some black clay, just like we use for the beard. And we're going to measure at once the 1/2 teaspoon to cover the back of the head. And I'm just getting 2 small balls of black cold porcelain clay, roughly the same size, lightly kneading them, then stretching them out, making sure that they're pointy at both sides, and then adding them to the top of each eye. Just like this. Now we can go back to the hair, and I'm just getting that measurement I previously had ready. I'm kneading that thoroughly, forming it into a ball, and then making it a bit hollow using the back of a measuring spoon. Leaving the thinnest part at the back and the slightly thicker part at the front so we can add that hair texture and definition. And I'm just carefully wrapping it around the back of the head, making sure we cover everything. Now we're going to give it some texture, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the beard, so just making some spirals around the top of the head to shape the hair. And just doing the same thing all around. Once that's done, it's going to look like this. And to make it stand out like we did for the beard, I'm going to go in with some of this pearled blue toner and just adding it very lightly at the top of the hair. And now we can see that hair texture and definition there. Now I'm just going to cut my round or circle cutout one more time, but this time on 1 teaspoon of this sort of beige color, just like we did for the cloak. And I just made it a little bit thinner around the sides, and I'm wrapping it around the top of the head of our little Wise King figurine, making sure the hair is slightly visible, and then attaching it nice and secure around the back of the head, and keeping the other part sort of like it's draping down the back. And I'm going to go in and add some acrylic paint to the edges of this sort of veil. Now at the top here, I'm just lifting it a little bit more, making a sort of peak. And I'm going to make a cut. Just like this. I'm going to let the paint dry, and for the front part that has white and green, I'm measuring 1/4 of a teaspoon in white and 1/8 of a teaspoon in green to make a sort of leaf decoration he's going to have in front of him. So I just cut that into 4 pieces, and one of those 4 pieces I'm cutting it in half again. And we're making sort of like a drop shape and then making it flat so it's more like a leaf. And I'm going to add some texture and lines. So making 2 very thin lines down the center, and then some diagonal lines going to the outside on each side. So it looks like a combination between a leaf and a feather. Just making those thin lines and then going over the middle lines one more time. Holding it at the bottom. And once it dries, this bottom part is what we're going to use to secure it onto our Wise King. I already have one that's really dry here. And remember, this one does have to be very dry so it's easier to sort of attach it to our figurine. And I'm just adding a little bit of powder toner in the color gold to the leaf to make the leaf texture stand out. Just like that. Now we're going to make the outline in this white clay. I'm just stretching it out until it's very thin. As thin as I can, but not too much. This one is now 15 centimeters after being stretched out. And I'm just folding it in half, then pressing it in the middle to have this sort of peak here. Just like that. Now I'm going to place it and align it with the peak we already had made on the veil. And I'm just wrapping it all around and meeting it at the back. Meeting both ends together and then cutting out the excess. This helps sort of hide the seam and where both sides of the clay met. Once we have this like that, we're going to add our leaf. I'm just making sure no parts are visible. And I'm just getting a little bit of glue and attaching that leaf at the top right there. And in the middle here, we're going to add a small accessory in gold. And for this, I'm going to get some black clay to make the golden paint stand out. So I just made this small ball of clay. And I'm going to give it a little bit texture in the middle, just by poking an indent, and then all around going in with a coffee straw, very lightly, just to give it a circle. And again, with that golden toner, powder toner, I'm going to go over that texture to make it stand out and give it that shine. Just like that. And I'm going to place it at the top here. And that's it. Now we have completed our little Wise King Balthazar figurine. And it's all set. I hope you liked today's project. My name is Rossy Rivera. Thank you for joining me. Many blessings.